funds into eco. Okay, I'll start again. A very good evening as well as good afternoon to all, and welcome to XNECO's webinar series. Our topic for the day is pivotal role of green financing in driving sustainability. In today's world, sustainable development is more crucial than ever. Green financing directs funds into eco friendly projects and innovations, from renewable energy to sustainable infrastructure. It's essential, not just a trend, helping business make responsible choices for a greener future. By focusing on climate resilience and resource efficiency, green financing drives us towards a more sustainable planet. Let's embrace this opportunity to make a significant impact. Our esteemed speakers for the day are Mr. Ridwan Bouquet, who is the Principal of Risk and Governance Management at Development Bank of Southern Africa, with extensive experience in risk management, environmental risk assessment, and corporate affairs. With a strong background in finance and banking, Mr. Ridwan has held key roles in prestigious organizations, driving strategic initiatives and fostering sustainable development. Our next speaker for the day is Mr. Ravi Tej Hegre. He is the Chief Executive Officer at Paryanavir Engineers and Consultants Private Limited, an environmental engineer and a sustainability strategist with over 12 years of experience in water treatment and ESG. As Senior Officer of Corporate Sustainability and Environment at Toyota Kirloskar Motors Limited, he has been instrumental in developing green branding strategies and implementing state of art environmental laboratories. Our next speaker for the day is Dr. Pramod Kumar Rajput, who is a seasoned corporate professional with more than 40 years of experience in the pharmaceutical and healthcare industry. He is a pharma business leader, global leadership coach, keynote speaker, professor of practice, and the author of Amazon bestseller The Leaders with Ladders. As the senior vice president of Cadila Pharmaceuticals, he has been instrumental driving strategic initiatives, building brands, and fostering sustainable growth across global markets. Our next speaker for the day is Madam Lena Sakai, who is an entrepreneur and author who has created Linux of ESG through Alliance Aware, Aware Alliance, manages ESG positive community and co-manages Cultural Empedoria, entrepreneurial culture community, works with startups and innovation investments through Ignitions Inc., is working hard to make organizations work more sustainable and in a more responsible manner. We welcome you all, and it is an honor to have you all today for the webinar. My first question goes to Mr. Ridwan Bouquet. With your extensive background in environmental risk management, I'd love to hear your insights on this. How does green financing contribute to achieving global sustainability goals? Sir, you're muted, sir.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thank you very much. This is a very, very important topic. I think it aligns very well to what is currently happening. And I think most importantly, we must take into account the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the Paris Agreement on Climate Finance. I think importantly, we've got a few areas that we need to cover, and why is it important? So I think the first one is accelerating the transition to a low carbon economy, which talks to SDG 13, climate action, Green finance directs capital towards renewable energy, energy efficiency, etc. And then also it supports business and governments in meeting their net zero targets and aligning with the Paris Agreement of limited global warming to 1.5 degrees below Celsius. It also supports sustainable infrastructure development, SDG 9. We can see this all over not only the African continent, but the Indian subcontinent and broader Asian continent. It looks at funding green buildings, smart grids, climate resilient transportation. Also, very importantly, and I think quite topical at this point in time, is the circular economy innovations, to minimize waste and resources. We're looking as well as promoting biodiversity and sustainable land use, SDG 15, life on land, and SDG 14, life below water. I think all countries along coastal lines need to be looking at reforestation, conservation efforts, and sustainable agriculture. As you know, from an SDG 15 point of view, from an SDG 14, we're looking at oceans, fisheries, and marine ecosystems to combat biodiversity loss. I think for a lot of people, and we can see this happening, especially in Africa, enhancing water and sanitation systems. SDG 6, access to clean water and sanitation. A lot of water efficient projects it's importable, as well as investment in sustainable irrigation. Advancing sustainable cities and communities, SDG 11, looking at low carbon transport, electric vehicles, public transport, and smart city solutions. I was in Colombia earlier last year, and they've got a great drive there towards, low carbon transport and public transport, which is really, really impressive. We're also looking at boosting social and inclusive economic growth, SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, creating green jobs in renewable energy, sustainable manufacturing, and nature-based solutions. We're looking at this considering just transition in what's going to happen to those industries that are going to be positively affected by a change. So I'm looking at coal-powered power stations, for example. How do we move these along, and how do we still continue to provide inclusive economic growth for those people who are going to be dispossessed once they move away from these heavy coal industries? We're also looking at innovation, for sustainable models, fostering long-term economic stability, which is also important, fostering responsible consumption and production, SDG 12, responsible consumption, supporting companies transitioning to sustainable supply chain and circular economy models, encourage from outside, which I can talk to, is green bonds and sustainability-linked loans that reward eco-friendly business practices. Finally, I think improving climate risk management and financial stability, helping financial institutions integrate climate-related financial risks into decision-making, ensuring resilient investments, and then also reducing systemic risks in the global economy by mitigating stranded asset risks and exposure, to environmental liabilities. I think in the end, by redirecting capital flows towards sustainable initiatives, green financing, it becomes a key driver in bridging the global funding gap for climate action and sustainable development. And I think this will go a long way, in assisting and improving in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was a great start. In fact, you have given us a great input when we talk of green financing, resilient investment, and also aligning it with SDG goals and how important SDG goals are. That's really wonderful. So, I also welcome Mr. Raja Mohanty, who is also the co-host of today's session. So now my next question goes to Mr. Ravi Tej Hegde. Given your experience in environmental consulting, how can investors effectively identify and support green financing opportunities that align with their sustainability goals?
Okay, that's a great question, Shrestha. I think the question very much touches upon the basic of the green financing. So what we believe is that the finding the right green investment is like finding a rare gem. It needs the insight, not just the eyesight. So investors who aim to align their portfolios with the sustainability goals, we from Paryavanir we help the institutional investors in finding the right investments and we suggest them to follow a six-step strategy, a strategic approach that we developed to guide the organizations in picking up the right investments in terms of green financing. The first and foremost part of the green investment starts with defining the clear sustainability goals as well as impact metrics. See, ultimately every organization, every institutional investors, they have their own priorities. They have their own ESG priorities. They have their own ESG metrics which they want to be impacting upon. So it is very important for any organization to clear up its goal in the first place, so that the ultimate impact which is generated through the investment is met, not only financially but also through the impact that it is going to create in terms of the ESG impact that it is going to create. So the first thing is to clearly state the objectives of the investment based on your ESG priorities. The organization has to align their investment to their ESG priorities and also use the impact metrics. For example, the KPIs like the CO2 reduction, energy savings, the water reduction, the water impact reduction. So there are various KPIs that can be that can define the impact that it is intending to create when the investment is made. The second important strategic approach that we suggest the organization to go ahead with is the evaluation. Once you have defined the objectives and you have the clear metrics on which you are going to measure the impact, the next step is to evaluate the projects. There are hundreds of projects which are coming to the market in through the different investment instruments, and it is becoming very much difficult for the investors to choose the right projects to invest upon, since there are a lot of greenwashings which are involved in the entire investment market. So there are various evaluation frameworks which are available as on date. The organizations can use the frameworks like the EU taxonomy to understand the impact that it is going to create, or there are country specific frameworks like India has a sovereign green bond framework which can be used for assessing the impact that it is going to create. And in cases where there is an investment project, the investors can also look into the certifications like the lead certifications for the infrastructural projects or even the climate bond initiatives. There are various certifications which can assure that the investors are investing upon the right project when it comes to the green investment. And the third thing that is very important as a strategic pillar that we say is the ESG due diligence. Even though there are enough certifications, enough data to support saying that the investment that is going to happen is going to create a positive impact, it is very much important to do the detailed due diligence in terms of assessing the greenwashing aspects as well as the governance aspects. Most of the green investments fail not because of the technological gaps, but because of the governance gaps in the projects that is invested upon. So it is very important that the projects that the organization invest upon is managed in the right corporate governance practices, so that it becomes very sustainable investment for the organizations. And the next important thing that we say for the investors is to explore the diverse green financial instruments. Now there are various instruments for the green financial investments. There are green bonds, there are sustainability linked loans, there are green infrastructural funds, there are green bonds. So there are various instruments which are there in the market. Each one of these instruments has its own pros and cons. So it is very important for any investors to look upon the pros and cons upon the investment in different instruments before getting into the investments. And also one more important aspect that we insist upon to the investors to look into is the risk management, as the elaboratively explained by Mr. Wuke, that the risk assessment of the project is one of the key aspects of the investment. So there are various technologies and the data analytics which are available as on date, which can help the organizations to assess and leverage the technology to assess the risk before they invest upon that. And also, once it is invested, it is not a done deal. So it requires a lot of monitoring and impact measurements on the subsequent to the investment to make sure that the investments are in the right track. So all these 6-step strategy that we suggest our investors and also we suggest our technology providers to implement will ensure that the green bonding or green financing which is done in this method is sustainable one. And with this method there are various funds which are investments which we have handled it. And there are the sovereign green bonds which was issued in 2023 in India has raised over 16,000 crores, which has been benefited by both benefited by the investors in both financially as well as in terms of their ESG impact. So with this I would like to conclude that the approaches that the investors has to follow is that it has to go through the project life cycle rather than just going and investing upon an available instrument and then sit back and look into the outcome of it. It requires beyond that. Thank you, Shrestha.
Yeah, very rightly said. Governance is very important. As whatever we do, whatever goals we set, we have to also see that we are governing it properly and we are implementing it rightly. And there's no greenwashing in the whole process as well. So we have to be diligent enough as far as it is. As far as it is there. So now I would like to invite Mr. Raja Mohanty to ask questions to the other speakers so that we can take the discussion ahead, as well as if you have any question to Mr. Ravi Tej, please do ask, sir. Before that, also, I would like to say that Mr. Mohanty is also our knowledge cohort member, so his inputs are really appreciated and valuable.
Thank you so much, Mr. No, I do not have any specific questions for Mr. Hegde at this point. I'll go to Dr. Rajput. It's a pleasure interacting, albeit virtually. Thank you so much, all of you, for making it possible today. Sir, with your background in driving strategic initiatives and, of course, driving sustainable growth, what specific measures do you believe are most effective? When I say specific measures like policy measures, which are most effective in encouraging investment in green projects?
Thank you, sir. Very, very good evening, good afternoon. And I'm very happy to be a part of XNECO and very happy to meet the wonderful people, wonderful professionals. Thank you, Shrestha ji, and thank you, Rakul, for inviting me. Today, the entire world is talking about the green sustainability, right, which is very, very important part. And now, since the United Nations goals, SDG goals, are there by 2030, so this is becoming a buzzword, which is not only a buzzword. Here, I can say expanding on the role of green financial is not just a financial mechanism, right? It is a transformative approach that is going to integrate the environmental consideration into the financial sector. This is the basic thing which is very, very important, right, sir? So your question is very, very important. You said what are the encouraging investment policies or strategies has to be there. I will talk about a couple of the strategies which I have learned from the people across while meeting them. So first is the incentive for the green investment, right? Because just now Mr. Ravi Tej has said about his 16,000 crore and the green bonds and all. But at the same time, I can add that government can provide the tax incentives, which is very important, subsidies, which is again important, right? And or the grant for business that invest in the green technologies and sustainable practice. Because these financial incentives is going to lower the initial cost barrier of the companies and making it more attractive to pursue environmentally, they will be more encouraged about it, sir. This is point number one. Point number two is regulatory framework. This is again important because when you are providing it, you have to have a clear-cut regulatory guidelines, right? So in that case, sir, if you are able to establish the robust regulatory framework, which is mandate for the environmental standard which can there, it can drive companies to adopt greener practices from a big company to a smaller company to the mid-sized company. So everybody is very, very clear. There's no flexibility. They know that has to be taken care, and then they are ready to put the thing because they know what is the outcome is going to happen, how government is helping us, and how we can make the things which is required. Third is, sir, public-private partnership. This is another point, because if you start encouraging the collaboration between the public and the private sector, they can facilitate the investment in the green infrastructure project. Again, taking the point of 16,000 crore rupees Mr. Ravi Teja has said about it, this can be multiple more times, because it can create a level playing field. It encourages investment in the green technologies. So in that way, we can have the sustainable urban development also. And this collaborative approach can lead to more efficient and effective implementation of the green project. This is the point number three. Point number four, I was just writing it. It is a green bond and financial instrument, which already Mr. Ravi Tej has said. So I'll not go on this point because that is the real requirement is there. Then education and awareness campaigns, sir. Today, we all will agree that the awareness campaign, since we talk about it, but it just go on the side, right? It is very important that education, raising awareness about the benefits of the green investment among the businesses and the consumers can drive demand for the sustainable products and the services. And the educational initiatives can inform the stakeholders about the long-term economic advantage of adopting the green practices, which is the need of the hour. Then I would like to hear alignment with the SDG goals. Right? We talk about the SDG 17 goals, right? But how we should be aligning it? This is again important part. So policies, which I spoke on the regulatory framework, which I also spoke about the government requirements. So policies that align with the sustainable goal, SDG goals, can help mobilize the resources towards the green project. So if we are able to frame the investment in sustainability as a means to achieve these global goals, government can attract both public and private funding. That's why I said that PPPs are very, very important. So that is another part which I like to add. Then, sir, again, we are talking about the carbon footprint. So carbon pricing mechanism. So implementing the carbon pricing, such as carbon taxes or cap and trade system, that can create the economic incentive for the businesses to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, which is the real need of the hour. And this is the real requirement, not only in India, but for the entire world. R&D funding. Today, how much we are spending in R&D funding? Again, this is one of the very important strategy, right? And if you start putting the funding and the R&D part, the newer innovation, the new development will be there. And it is going to help the entire universe, which is a real requirement, sir. Then I would like to add another point, which is very, very important. That is financial support for the startups. Now, in India, you know that lot many startups are coming up, right? They are thinking, because the new generation, which are coming from different parts, they require the money, right? Like suppose I was listening about Mr. Ravi Teja, 14 years experience, right? A great person with a great startup mind, right? I'm talking about this. So let us give example. So if suppose Mr. Ravi Teja is ready for that, then the funding is there, and with his knowledge, with his expertise, Ravi Tej can make a lot of difference, right? And that is the way it is required. So that's the way I saw about the green funding part, the basic funding part. Then capacity building and technical assistance. Now, why only one person should be responsible for that? Why not the group of the people? Because offering the capacity building programs across and the technical assistance to the various businesses, because every business has the different domain, it can help them to have the transition to the sustainable practice. And for that, the companies or the government should provide the skills which is really needed to implement the green sustainable goals. So it is again government and the public and the private partnership all should be putting it, so that people should be aware about it. The skills should be developed and they should be able to provide it on the basic level which is required. And then this we can be spreading it, which is the need of the hour. Then I already spoke about the policy. The policy has to be the short term, the mid term, and the long term policy. So there has to be three steps are there. Suppose I started the thing. So this is my short term policy. But now I started accelerating the things. What is my mid term policy is there? Right? And when I am booming, then what is my long term policy? And my long term policy is not for me for as an entrepreneur or for a particular unit. It has to be that how I am able to inculcate it, how am I able to spread it across. Because if I am able to spread it across, then 10 more entrepreneurs will come, 10 more companies will come, and they will adopt this. So this is the way this is required. And last but not the least, that's community engagement and support system. Today, the community has to be involved. Why it should be a very niche? Why it should go only the very few people? So if you are able to put it on the community part, right, we will be able to get this support also. Maybe a little support out of the support, but out of the support will make a lot of difference. So I can say, I can conclude that aligning with the global sustainability goal is very, very important. And when we align with the government, when we have the private partnership, R&D should be there, sustainable product procurement policy should be there, community involvement will be there. As a whole soul, if you say the package, right? It is not that everybody will take that package. Somebody will take AB, somebody will say CD, somebody will say EF, like that. So the total package is ready available, and then we will be able to take it forward, and then we'll be able to fulfill the requirement of the SDG 2030 goals, which is the real requirement. And we have to do it. Otherwise, then again, the carbon footprint, the emissions, and all these things are going to pull us back. So this is the way, sir, I like to add it here from my point of view. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. That was indeed an eye opener. And yes, public private partnership is critical because most of these projects will be larger in scale, that one has to look at keeping 2030 in mind. And it's not just that one does it particularly for one's own country, but if you are looking at the environment, the social, and the governance aspect, it does go into boundaries beyond one's own country. I mean, if you look at the supply chain, for example, or the entire value chain where sales has to go through, that does have its impact, and which is very well stated. So just one more follow on this is, do you feel that a lot of companies do contribute their CSR into specific projects? Maybe if it is, would it make sense to a corporate to allocate a part of the CSR into environment related startup funding to sort of initially check waters whether this particular idea is sustainable or not as a business? So do you think CSR funds should try and look at that as an opportunity?
Sir, you have touched the point. I said, no, there has to be three types of the goal: short term, mid term, long term. So when I want to say about the long term goal is that with the CSR fund, because they have to give 2% of the entire profit, you know that, right? Okay. So that particular point, because the big companies, then they can utilize that fund so that the other startups, that's why I said spreading the wings, right? So I mean to say that spreading the wings was the basic thing that CSR fund has to be given, which is the real need of the hour. Because what they will do with so much of the money, this is, and let me tell you, sir, sorry to say, most of the companies CSR fund has not been utilized properly where it is required. That you know, that we also know very well, right? So they want to put it, but where to put it, which way to put it, how to put it, this is very, very important. And in the leader is going to put the things rightly to them, that yes, you are going to help these 5 startups, 10 startups, and they are going to be a real change maker, right, in the coming time, in 5 years of that time. This is the right way of putting your CSR funds, which is the real need of the hour. And it is not that you are helping the only startup, you are helping the environment, you are helping the entire universe together. That is very, very important, sir.
Thank you, sir.
True.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
So I think my next question goes to Madam Leena. With your extensive background in ESG practices, what do you see as the main challenges and barriers in scaling up green financing?
Good afternoon, good evening, yes, good morning. Thank you for the invite. It's a pleasure to participate again. We work with investments, we're creating future funds, and we exchange experience with our community of investors. And what we see in the market is something, it's weird. I don't know if we have words for that, but when innovative projects, green financing comes up and we start analyzing them, something different occurs with investors. They see the beautiful impacts, the opportunities, and the potential, and it may cause a psychological receptiveness on the investors. And we see that some details of the model, the business model, of or some traps that in the like many of those projects are innovative in a different way, in a way that's new, really new, like not like other businesses that like Uber, they create Uber of something else, Uber of so like we saw people selling like plants in that people can raise at home, small plants, and they see that as start engaging in the environment, for a population as a whole, or for the food, eating food that they can plant at home, and they create this new technology for that. But we when it appeared, for example, we saw that that could be not a potential business because it was easy to buy those things uh, easily in the market, and cheaper. So, and many investors did invest, and now we see that they are asking the third time for investments, and they still not have revenue. So this is happening a lot on these new things that are emerging in the market, and we see them disappearing because there is a flaw in the business model. And I think the challenges, I think the barriers is that the way we analyze those businesses, it's we have to see the impacts, of course, but what will make them sustainable is the business model. If the market's going to accept it, the price. So that's a challenge in this area. It's a lot of new things that were not tested yet, so that's very challenging. And all the other challenges of all sectors, of all entrepreneurs, there is the financial education. They may use badly the money, like that case I told you. Uh, it's been very common, these initiatives, these startups asking money like that the third time, no revenue, and investors are starting to understand this it's repeating. So I think that's a challenge, and this sector, green financing, is becoming like a bit of investors are seeing like with more care, because maybe their psychological receptiveness may uh, create a trap for them when they analyze those businesses, because when it's another business, traditional one, analyze correctly, but when it's a new like potential for environment, for social, then I think investors may change the perception. I don't know, but that's why we work with methodology, so we won't be like uh, we won't mislead our own minds. So I think that's a challenge, to have methodology on those, to select the businesses. Most they don't have methodology, so I think that's something I think people will need to start creating and adopting. And there is, I took a note on, there are many non-profit initiatives that are increasing incredibly like impactful, but as they are non-profit and they don't know, they most people that are involved in this, they don't know the benefits of the profit business. So they can't receive investments to share the profit, and they don't know that when you share the profit, you share more prosperity. You can scale more the business. You can you can impact more regions, other countries. So I think there's still these people that does not know the benefits of the profit. And so I think that's another challenge and barrier for very good initiatives. And um, there is also something that's happening in the stock exchange here in Brazil. The giant companies, they have their own nonprofit initiatives, and but to see if the impact is really occurring now, the stock exchange is they are asking to see where the money is going, the reports from those non-profit initiatives also. So I think that is a change, because now we are seeing the news of the USA, the scandal that's happening, and all the non-profit that receive the money, where it goes. So they're all like, I think they're getting more mature on really investigating where money is going with the non-profit initiatives that before it was not really investigated. And we all think that non-profits are okay, they are created for good, but unfortunately criminals, they use them, especially because they look good, so they can hide the crimes. So I think that those are the main barriers. And the one last one, the professionalization of business. When the investors come and they're going to put their money, they see all the risks involved, they see all the insurance services that may be needed for the business. So they help the professionalization of the business, the leadership and the process in the business. I think that's also a challenge in most business. They come without that professionalization stage. So I think those are the main challenges and barriers.
Very rightly
I
said.
feel I
Yes.
feel there is a particular linkage between what Mr. Hegde, Dr. Rajput also mentioned. The short term, mid term, long term, and what Mr. Hegde mentioned about the matrices and the 6 steps. That would help in kind of streamlining how a project is executed. And yes, what you did mention, Lena, is very critical. Even if it is in the ESG framework, a startup is a startup and they have to go with the respect of the investor's money, which is something a
Yes.
lot of us in this field feel that, just because you are getting money for a social cause, you can do whatever you feel like with it. But ESG, I don't think is really a social cause anymore. It is sort of a lifeline kind of a cause. I mean, you do it to survive. And I think this is a very well mentioned point that you did say that yes, some of the money, if not all, does go into causes that we don't know about.
True. And along
Absolutely.
with that, even the business model has to be in place. So you
Yes.
are thinking that you're doing something green and it is something great. But if you're not having your business model in place, then you're nowhere. So one has to look into that aspect as well. So my next question goes to Dr. Pramod Kumar Rajput. How can green financing be leveraged to advance sustainable practices and innovations within the pharmaceutical sector, particularly in terms of reducing environmental impact and promoting public health?
Fantastic question. I think pharmaceutical industry is one of the booming industry, and especially when I talk in India, we are known as the pharmacy of the world, and very soon we will be the power of pharmacy in the coming time. That's what the way is happening there. But of course, there are a lot of requirements, lot of change is required, which pharmaceutical industry, the big companies, they are taking care and they are making it happening. So first thing I like to start with that supporting the green chemistry initiative, right? Because it can be directed towards the R&D and in green chemistry, which is focusing on designing the chemical processes that is going to reduce the hazard substances. This is very important. Second thing is, I like to highlight it here, utilization of artificial intelligence, the algorithms, right? So when you utilize this AI and with the help of the algorithms, then you are able to develop the new drug delivery system, which is very important, right? What is happening now? Because today, to find the new drug, it takes 10 years. Earlier, 2 years, it was taking 10 years. But now, in just 3 years of the time, you are able to provide the new drug delivery system, the new drug, the responses, and all. And that will be all hazard free because you are on the machines, you are with the algorithms. It is going to help. This is point number one. Point number two is That's sustainable packaging solutions. Again, if you go and purchase the product costs a couple of rupees or maybe a different dollars and all. But the packaging is so big where the injection or the product is very, very small. So if you are able to provide the recyclable things and all, reducing the entire waste, it is going to help because innovative packaging, designing that with the less material or incorporating the post-consumer recycle content, it is going to help, which is very important. This is the point number two. The point number three is promoting the energy efficiency and renewable energy uses. How? Because the solar, the God has given us sun. So utilization of the solar system or the wind energy, it is going to reduce the consumptions of the electricity and the carbon footprint. So the more we are able to utilize it, we will be able to provide the things which is really required. This is the point number three. Then coming to the next point, which is there in my mind, which is enhancing the waste management practices. Lot of waste is going there, lot of waste, right? So how to ensure that it should be recycled? How to ensure that it should be taken care in the proper way? So recycling programs and the pharma companies can minimize the waste generated during the production and distribution. I'm not talking about the end utilization. When you're producing it and when you're finalizing it, if you put the things in the right way, you will be able to make the difference. And that's what many of the companies they started doing it, and that's what it comes the industry 4.0. And today the industry 4.0 has been taken care by the pharmaceutical industry in a bigger way because the manpower has been reduced, and at the same time the wastages have been reduced, the efficiency has increased, the effectivity has increased. This is the way the things are going on. Then I would like to have collaboration with the health system and sustainable outcome, because if you are able to collaborate with the healthcare system to promote the sustainable part, like there are lot many variables are there. So why to unnecessarily go and waste? It is going to make a difference in that when the people they are aware. Prevention is better than cure, right? So that's what we say that if you start preventing yourself with the right way, you will be able to take care and you will be able to reduce. Now, the last point which Raja Mohinty sir has said, that why not the CSR part should be given, right, to the startups. I will say here, not only to the startups, but to the educational institutes also. Because when you start putting this thing to the educational institute, the CSR fund, they will be able to learn and inculcate the habit of sustainability part, which is very important. Second thing is you can also provide the basic thing, the CSR part, to the different public to build the public image also, right? If you are able to build a public image, you can make lot of difference which is required. So company can use the green financing to fund the community health programs, focuses on the education, accesses to the medicine and environmental health initiatives. So there are multiple ways where the pharmaceutical company have adopted and they will be adopting it, and then lot of opportunities are there because it's the artificial intelligence or AR, VR, and XR has become a boon, not a bane. And by using it, utilizing it, that lot of thing hazards can be taken care. And utilizing the solar system or the wind energy, again, it's free of cost, absolutely free. So utilize it and reduce the carbon footprint. That's all I can add it as a part of the pharmaceutical industry.
Wonderfully said, sir. In fact, you have covered all the aspects that a pharmaceutical industry should look into, starting from the AI integration to renewable energy
R&D,
to R&D as
R&D,
well.
yeah,
Yes. So
yeah. So
these
AI
so
integration,
you
both, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So, along with that, you have also told us how, even startups can be helped by the present companies. So, that was a very valuable input. Now, I would like to ask Mohanty sir, does he have any question to our panel members
Shwetaji,
at this point of time?
I like to add, this is not again taking the point from Raja sir. Startups is very important, but the community building, the programs, the education programs in the universities, right? Because there are many universities when they are talking about the environmental sustainability, there are programs are running there, right? But they don't have the fund so that people they want to make their career in environmental sustainability part, right? But they don't have the fund. So if the big companies, right, they are able to provide little small of the fund, right? These universities who want to make a difference, they will be able to grow like the thing which is really required. So I always say, let us start from also from the education system also, because when today's the young generation will think about that, so there will be no need to talk so much about it, because they know that they have to be more sustainable, they have to be more environmental friendly, which is the real need of the hour, because they are doing for themselves and they are doing for the next generation, which is going to come for the future.
True,
That's
sir.
perfectly said, sir. That's perfectly said. And in fact, the academia and industry is a key partnership which is required. And there are a lot of things that can be bounced off between either one of them, and things can be taken forward. That's very well said, sir. That's very well said.
Thank you, sir.
So, my next question goes to Madam Leena Sakai. So, how do you envision the evolution of green financing in addressing the social and governance aspect in ESG beyond environmental concerns?
So, what we see in the community, we talk with each other on governance, especially investors are asking more transparency. So, like Professor said, now we have AI, big data. So, they want these tools to be used as to measure the governance risk more effectively, more what's happening, what's their operation, what's happening in the operation, if it really is happening accordingly to the plan. So they want the data-driven financing on governance, especially. Uh, and I think a very good evolution on green financing is the receptiveness of it, and tracking the operation processes with audition is also something very important. In Brazil, something I don't know if you heard about this case, the King of Carbon, the largest credit carbon emission company. It was all a fraud. So they corrupted all the system that would audit them, and they misleaded even the giant banks that invested on them. So the giant companies that bought the carbon credit, they bought it, but it was worth nothing actually. So they are really keeping up with data. And they are really demanding strong governance standards. Well, so it's very difficult when the whole system is corrupted to see if it the reality, to see the truth. But the truth always comes up one day. So now they are really, I think, correcting the processes of these governance standards on the transparency and compliance. On the social aspect, something that I really enjoy seeing is that the professionals and organizations, they are ensuring the well-being of people. So the people that are going to be impacted, they are really keeping up with them to see if it's really happening. Like for example, especially with workers in the organization, because not just the solution for people in specific, but if the workers in those initiatives are really they really have the income enough for their needs, for their family, minimum comfort for the family. So they evaluate poverty even inside the companies, and of course the public that's going to be impacted, but they really want to see life changing. So I think that's evolution in green financing, to really keeping up and really talking with people to see if the change is really occurring, and especially with employees, if they are really having a good condition as a worker, and as their families, minimum comfort for their families. So they're really, I think, the evolution in the social and governance aspects are in these topics.
Wonderful. That was a very wonderful input. In fact, when we talk of governance, how important it is, and even the social aspect that we need to look into. And even in green financing, we have to see to it that the money is properly utilized, is properly invested, and it goes into right direction and right use. So now my next question goes to Ridwan Vuke, sir, Mr. Ridwan Vuke. How can financial institutions better integrate environmental risk considerations into their green financing frameworks to ensure more resilient and sustainable investments?
Thank you very much. So, a very important question. I think we can break it down in sort of 8 broad areas. I think the first one is to develop robust environmental risk assessment models. It's very important, and I think some of the central banks are mandating this, is to incorporate climate risk stress testing, in terms of the resilience of the portfolios. Also to use climate scenario analysis to assess potential future impacts on their asset values, and then integrate quantitative ESG metrics into credit risk models, linking environmental risks to financial performance. I think gone are the days where people are arguing that there is no direct link between environmental risks and financial performance. If anything, the last 5 years in particular, the insurance industry or one has definitely seen this. The fires recently in the US, in California, has borne this out. I think also enhancing ESG data collection and standardization. Companies and financial institutions really need to invest in AI-driven ESG analytics. It's going to make data collection better, and also will improve validation. Adopting standardized ESG reporting frameworks. I think this has become more, again, something that's been taken up by the regulators in terms of ISSB, for example. There's the EU taxonomy, the taxonomy for bonds in India. South Africa's also got its SA green taxonomy, and also the requirement for granular sector-specific environmental disclosures from borrowers to assess transition risk. Another important aspect, I think number 3, is incorporating environmental risk in credit risk models. One needs to adjust credit ratings based on climate-related financial risks. Implement green lending criteria that reward companies with lower carbon footprints, and then using sectoral risk weightings, to assign higher risk premiums to carbon intensive industries. And we can see that this has been adopted by the financial services industries. Number 4, align investment strategies with sustainability goals. Set science-based targets for green financing portfolios, example, net zero commitments. Develop climate-aligned lending policies that phase out high-risk industries. Expand green bond and sustainability-linked bonds where interest rates are tied to ESG performance. Again, number 5, strong due diligence and risk disclosure to mandate environmental risk disclosures for all finance projects. Conduct your environmental impact assessments, your EIA, before approving large-scale funding, and ensure full life cycle analysis of projects, assessing long-term sustainability risks. And this is very important, specifically within large infrastructure projects. Number 6, adopt AI and machine learning for environmental risk forecasting. I think the predictive modeling that is available through AI is there. It's something that needs to be incorporated when forecasting environmental risks and credit impacts. Look at also geospatial analysis as well as big data analytics in terms of ESG risk scoring, fraud detection in green financing. Incentivize sustainable business practice. I know that's something that we do. In terms of the Global Climate Fund criteria, is to offer preferential loan terms for companies with strong environmental credentials, penalize borrowers that fail to meet climate risk mitigation targets, and then also, and it's been a big topic recently, is the introduction of carbon pricing mechanisms in loan structures to encourage emissions reduction. And then finally, strengthen governance and regulatory compliance. Align policies with regulatory frameworks such as Basel III, the SFDR or the EU Green Bond Standards, work with central banks and regulators to integrate climate risk into prudential regulation, and then establishing ESG-focused risk committees to oversee sustainability integration in financing. By integrating these strategies, financial institutions can really mitigate environmental risks. They can enhance their credit risk assessment accuracy and ensure that green financing truly supports resilient and sustainable investments. Thanks.
Very wonderfully said, sir. Very wonderfully summed up. In fact, you have given almost all the inputs that is needed when it comes to green financing and risk mitigation when it comes to green financing, and also the fact that ESG should be standardized. That is something that needs to be looked into, and there should be a proper record of ESG parameters. Mohanty, sir, would you like to add something to this?
I think Mr. Woke has summed it up really well. And if what I have gathered out of this is, while we might be in different corners of the world, the problems are the same when it comes to the environment, and the solutions are more or less clicking together with maybe something which is specific to that country. But yes, this will have to call for a lot more of united efforts and sharing of best practices, as we have been privileged to hear. But I think that's perfectly stated. I mean, by everybody. That's wonderful.
True, sir. Sir, my next question goes to Mr. Ravitej Hegde. How do you perceive the role of green financing in advancing cutting-edge environmental technologies and innovations, particularly in the context of water treatment and resource management? Sir, you're muted, sir.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. So that's a great question. I think that's the question which is required to be discussed for sure. So what we believe is the toughest part of launching a new technology isn't it's a science. It's convincing someone to pay for it. So ultimately, the more difficult part of bringing up a technology or developing a technology is how or who is going to fund for it is the most difficult part of it. So here, green financing plays a very crucial role in bridging the gap between the technological innovations as well as the large-scale implementations, particularly in the sectors like wastewater treatment and resource management and climate technology and the green technology as a whole. It plays a very crucial role because these are the fields where there is a lot of betting which need to be done onto the technologies which are still in the developing stage. So this is where the green financing plays a very crucial role in bridging the gap between the technological innovations and large-scale implementations. Before getting into the discussion on how it is going to help exactly, I would like to discuss upon what are the challenges basically being faced by the technology providers as well as the organization who are willing to implement those technologies. In implementing these technologies, what are the challenges that they are basically facing? The first and foremost challenge that we can bring upon that the organizations are facing is the high R&D cost and the capital intensity which are related to the research stage investments. So basically once the technology gets into a stage where it gets into the growth stage, it is very easy to get the funding and keep the ball running. Whereas when the technology or when the concept is in very in an R&D stage or in a pilot scale, it becomes very difficult for the organizations to bring in the fund. So that is the most difficult part of the entire project ecosystem or the technology ecosystem that I can bring upon. And especially as Professor Rajput was mentioning, so the startups and the technology providers struggle in securing the capital for R&D, basically at the stage where it is not even proven or it is proven at a pilot scale. So that is the most difficult challenge that the organizations are facing. And the second thing, apart from the R&D cost, there is another risk that the organizations are facing, which is the limited access to the traditional financing. See, if in the traditional financing like the lendings or even the IPOs or any other green bonds are not very much accessible for the which are in the developing stage, or they are not even gone to the scalability of it. So it becomes very access for the funds from the traditional finance when they are very much proven in the sense. And also there are complex regulatory frameworks which makes it very difficult for the organizations to convince the traditional financing organizations to access these fundings. And also there are scale up barriers. Basically there are technologies which will be feasible only at the scales, which will be feasible only when it is implemented at such a scale that it requires a huge funding before it becomes break even for the organizations to pitch in for the technology or develop the technology and implement it on the ground. So these are all the various problems that are being faced by the technology providers as well as the innovators while accessing the funding and rolling out their technology. Now that we have understood what are the challenges, now let us understand how green financing bridges these gaps. Right. So the first thing that I mentioned is with respect to the research and development and innovation, or in the in the terminology of the startup, if the organization is at a angel stage, so what kind of a funding can be mobilized, which can start, or which can run the technological innovations, which will scale up to the scale where it can make a real impact. So here I would like to bring in two, three aspects of the funding mechanisms which are available at the stage for the technologies which are yet to be developed or yet to be proved upon. So there are various green financing mechanisms which are available to catalyze the R&D and innovation. So there are dedicated green bonds for R&D. For example, European Investment Bank had issued a green bond which was specifically to fund the sustainable water technologies. Right. So there are even World Bank had one of such mechanism where it was there was a bond which was specifically issued to source the funds for the sustainable water technologies alone. And also it the green financing mechanisms also facilitate the PPP models or public private partnership models, where there is a for the early stage funding for the innovators related to water technology or the clean tech domain can get the grants and the concession on the loans through the PPP models. So there are various such instruments which has been proven and which has been given the benefits for the investors also. And for example, there was a in 2020 there was a EU Horizon program which had provided a funding of over 25 million euros, if I'm not wrong. So that had brought up various water purification technologies, accelerated breakthrough in the nanotechnologies, water filtrations, and there are various technological interventions with respect to the water management has been developed. So this was one part of it. As I was mentioning, the accessibility for the fundings for where the technology is in the R&D stage. And when it comes to the next stage of it, when the technology is in the emerging stage, so what kind of help the green financing can make if we can analyze upon it further. So there are blended financial models that green financing models offer. So there are, as I already explained, there are public-private partnership models where there is a de-risking for the investors, basically because with the diversification of the investors who are funding for the technologies, there's a de-risking of the technology which happens, which can take care of the risk which need to be handled by the investors in order to investing in the emerging technologies. And also there are green climate funds which are very famously known for the investments where there are various AI related leakage detection systems. There are various water related technologies which has been funded with the green climate fund, which has been very beneficial for the organizations. And green climate funds and American partnership invested over 26 millions, if I'm not wrong, on various decentralized wastewater treatment plants in Africa and other parts of the I believe the South American countries, and it has impacted over 1 million people, as reported by the Green Climate Fund in one of the reports which had been published earlier. And then comes the stage at which the commercialization, the market adoption comes. Now that we have understood the stages at the R&D and at the growth stage, now we have the commercialization and the market adoption stage, where there are sustainability linked loans which are being offered by almost all the financial instruments these days, which can help. And there are various venture capitals which work on the impacts, impact investment funds which are there, which invest upon the water tech, green tech, climate techs, have made a real difference onto the way in which the fundings has been managed or mobilized for the technologies in the field of water management, green tech, as well as in the climate tech. And also I would like to, since we are discussing the stage where it is the stage at which the funding is required for technological interventions or technological developments, here it is very much important that we touch upon something related to the green tech venture capitals. So there are various venture capitals who are funding in the climate tech. And India is one of the highest fund receiver from the global venture firms onto climate tech startups. And I think 25% of the overall climate tech investments happens in India, if I'm not wrong. I mean, I'll have to refresh upon my data, but it is close to 25% is the overall climate tech investment that comes to India. And most of the 90% of this comes to the city of Bangalore, where we also have the office of. And international investments, and there are various investment mechanisms like the government initiatives and green bonds also are funding the startups. So for example, in India, there are specific green tech funds which has been developed for by the government as a fund of funds, which is driving the startup ecosystem related to the climate tech in India. And also there are if we move out of India, there are in the UK, government also has a there's a different countries across the globe, which drive the startups or startup ecosystem related to clean tech and water technology. So this is what I would say, that the role of the green financing in addressing the challenges or funding challenges that are being faced by the organizations or technology developers at various stages. So yeah, I think this is what I would like to tell upon.
Yeah,
Wonderfully said, sir.
in fact, to what Mr. Hegde said, for individuals who want to invest but do not know how, the government of India has okayed ESG mutual funds. So there are about 9 or 10 specific mutual funds which are there. But then the challenge is, one does, if I am a starter, I do not know where to go and pitch. So that is why one goes to the regular investment platforms of the angel funds and the venture capital at some stage, and to corporates. But I think that that's absolutely very well articulated and stated about where one can go. And that becomes a little critical, because even though banks have support, but for a initial first generation entrepreneur to walk into a bank is itself a challenge. So that's very aptly put.
Yeah. So now I think there are comments also which we are receiving from our viewers. So organizations normally look at profitability at the end of the day, and sustainability is an element of the business. How different is green finance from the normal financing option? So I would invite the panel members if anyone would like to address the question.
if I can go ahead, coming from the banking, the
Sure, sure,
banking
sure, sir.
viewpoint, at this point in time, there is no difference. I think gone are the days when we look at green financing as separate to what our normal lending operations would be, considering the impact that your lending will have on projects. So when one looks at the projects, take for example, you're going to do a project in the, you're going to put in a reticulation service. Let's say you're going to put in a drainage system in a new part of a city. Whereas before we would just look at the credit metrics to say, is the loan serviceable, right? That was it. We do some work on obviously the technology to make sure that what they're putting in is going to suffice. But these days, when one looks at it, taking into account the impact of everything we do on the climate, one cannot divorce it. So when one looking at putting in that reticulation service, we have to look at things like, are we going to in any way impact the environment negatively that could cause the destruction of an indigenous species, for example? If we're going to put that in, is it going to have any impact on the infrastructure, water infrastructure in the environment? Is there a water table that could be affected? It could be affected. When one looks at the technology itself, the life of infrastructure is also 30 to 50 years, depending on what you're putting in. What happens post that? Because the obligation and the responsibility now on the financer, on the lender, is to understand that when we put this infrastructure in and we lend to the borrower, our reputation, the work that we're going to do is going to continue for the next 20 to 30 years. It doesn't end where we disburse the loan, they pay us back, and that's it. Because we have got to take responsibility for the infrastructure and the lending that we do. Considering the fact that now, in terms of accounting, we've already started accounting for the lending that we do in a way that goes beyond just the profit and the loss. So when one's looking at the standards, the ISSB standards, one has to look at the S1 and S2 because we have to take all this into account. So it's still vitally important to understand that one cannot really make a distinction between green finance. I think one can make a distinction in is when we finance is that some projects are going to be naturally more nature sensitive, they're going to be more eco-friendly. But all the projects that banks finance these days have got a component that has to take into account sustainability, environmental governance, the ESG principles, social and governance into the assessments. Thanks.
Can I continue?
Sure, sure.
Is it for everyone, this question? Yes, okay. So I agree with what he said. Investors in our community, like what I said before, the trap, they were falling because the projects were beautiful, the impacts were beautiful, but they wanted things to work, and they were putting money on it and forgetting to see really the sustainability of the business and the technology. So now they're really aware of it. They're calling for specialists on the technology, on the sector, really to see, because there are new technology. I don't know, I shared the news on energy created by plants. So it's something new. No one knows about it. And there are some people saying that, oh, is that going to kill the plant? They keep asking questions. So it's new. And we need to investigate that better. But it's difficult to analyze like that when they create something new like that. So we kind of want this to work. So that's I think what investors think the first time they see something like that, but they keep with profitability, sustainability of business. They want it to scale, so they want to see if it's really have a potential of a scaling. They want to it's difficult when it's hardware because it depends on things, but they really analyze better now with this business model, with people that are involved, if they really have the capability of of doing and making the business grow. So we keep the way we analyze investments, the fundamental investment theory. We use that for the analysis. And for startups, for traditional enterprises, I think it's the same. It keeps the same. And I think the main things we see when we see an innovation, we keep analyzing founders, people are involved, their credibility, the market opportunity, and the technology potential. So profitability and sustainability, they're important in all businesses. Doesn't matter if it's green financing or not. And I think now investors are more like mature on this before they get into enchanted by a solution like energy created by plants. They're really taking more care on their money, and to really see this solution happen and scale. I think that's how they see.
Wonderful, ma'am. In fact, now I would like to invite the panel members if they want to contribute something to the discussion we have been having till now. It would be great. Anyone who would like to speak at this moment regarding green financing and any other aspect? Okay,
I think
so
everything is being covered very well. All the
yes,
points, all the nuggets
all the points
have
have
been
been
covered.
covered. In
Yeah,
fact,
yeah, very well
I had
covered.
a
Nothing to be added.
yes.
Yeah.
In fact, I had a last question which was asked by one of the audience. So I think we have come to the end of the webinar today, and we have seen the how we started with SDG goals and how they have to be aligned with the goals of the company, and then they have to be key performance indicators, and then the assessment has to be done whether the green implementation is being done. The green we looked into R&D. We looked into how education organizations, if they are supported, how they can give back with good ideas. We also saw how there's greenwashing as well, and one has to be careful about that. We also saw how there should be standardization of ESG. So we have covered a lot of things in today's discussion, and I hope this webinar was of great learning to the viewers. I thank all the panel members for their great inputs and their valuable time. And also, I thank the viewers for their time and for being there and asking good questions to our panel members as well. So with this, I come to the end of the webinar, and I thank all the panel members for their valuable time and the great inputs they gave us. Thank you so much. We come to the end of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
It was a pleasure.
Bye-bye.